Hello, Hadassah. I was going to say good morning because it's morning here, but where you are, it's in the evening. So good evening, Hadassah.
Good evening. Yes, I'm far, far away from you. I'm in Bulgaria, Europe, and here is already dark. It's an evening, but I'm so happy that we can connect across the ocean and have this conversation. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And my listeners will recall that there was another opportunity where I had a chance to speak to a widow, a woman who had lost her
Mm-hmm.
husband. And I find that so interesting because I believe that there is a kinship between women who have lost their husbands physically, but also women
Yes.
who have had breakups or divorces where they're grieving a marriage
Yes.
or grieving a relationship. And
Yes.
I talked with Leah Crest, who had such wise, I think, wisdom to share. And then when we met, I thought the same thing. I was like, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
we've got to have Hadassah on the show because I believe that there are these lessons that we as women can learn from each other, no matter whether or not we've
Yes.
gone through the exact same thing. Would you agree?
Yes. Absolutely. I think loss is a loss, and especially when you mentioned that it's the grieving of the marriage. It is this, I experienced the same. I lost my husband. He by death he died, but actually this is just one loss. But it brought so many cumulative losses, and the first is the loss of the marriage, the loss of the family. Because in my case, I didn't have children, and for me, this death meant I lost my family, not only my marriage. And then came a lot of other losses too. So definitely, I agree. We don't go through the same experiences, but loss is a loss, and losing a person or losing a relationship, losing a marriage, it has so many similarities, and we can for sure, by sharing our stories, learn from each other, comfort each other, and give hope to each other, which I hope we can do today in our conversation.
I agree. So let's go back just a little bit and tell us about your story
Yes,
and how you were able to find some healing in this process.
yes. Yes. Yeah, I would like to say a few words about me first for your
Yes.
listeners. Yeah, I'm living in Bulgaria, and since 5 years, I'm a widow. I'm also an author and speaker and poet. I started my ministry, because for me this is a ministry, about 8 years ago, by writing a blog. And in 2024, so last year, I published my first book, which is called Drom Near: How Painful Experiences Become the Birthplace of Blessings. And I also published two poetry books, but they are in Bulgarian, because this is my mother tongue, Bulgarian. Perhaps you hear my accent, I guess. Yes, and I'm also a contributing author to 14 more books and devotional anthologies. Yeah, so but my first book, baby, was a very special one, and it is very closely connected with my story of losing my husband. And yeah, 5 years ago, completely out of the blue, completely unexpected, I lost my husband of 15 years. We had a 15 years marriage, no children, and this loss really turned my world upside down, because at the time when I lost my husband, we had a wonderful relationship. Our marriage had some problems, but they were all behind us. And he was definitely my closest person, my best friend, my biggest cheerleader. So, really, the person with whom I shared the most intimate relationship, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. This loss completely turned my world, as I said, upside down. And especially in the first months, in the first year, I honestly didn't believe that healing is possible, because I felt that this as if half of my being is missing, half of my heart is missing. I couldn't see my future. Everything what I saw was some darkness and simply no vision to the future, because my vision was always connected with him. We had a common vision, and we imagined life, what we will do together, what we will not do together. To put it short, this loss put me in the desert or in the wilderness of grief and loneliness. This is how I call now the period in which I'm going through. I'm still going through this period, although 5 years are gone. I still can say, and also God spoke to me in many terms, and He imprinted also this me. Yes, I'm in a wilderness period now. This is the grief and the loneliness, but my recent insights and revelations, and I think this is important, is to understand really the aim of all wildernesses we are going through, or all deserts God is putting us through. And I think because in my life I had also some very traumatic periods of dealing with different kind of losses, although this is the most traumatic. The aim, this is what I'm now keeping my focus, is that at the end of the wilderness, everybody and me, myself now in my case, I need to come with this firm belief and firm conviction in all my being that God is enough, that He is enough in this wilderness, that He is enough in this desert. This is the first, and the next is learn, and we learn with every cycle, with every wilderness, to learn to put my yearnings, desires, appetites, cravings behind God's eternal will, behind His eternal word. And I think that now in the fifth year, I'm slowly not only recovering and healing, but I'm slowly learning to do exactly this. I thought that I have learned this, but obviously not. Because with each new loss, with each new trauma, new cravings, new desires, new appetites are coming. And I need simply to learn to put them behind God's eternal will, to treasure the relationship with the Lord the most, to live really, to learn to live as He is enough, despite all the losses that I'm experiencing. And I will continue to experience, because this is human life. It's a chain of losses. At the end, we will lose also this body and everything, our belongings, our achievements, our whatever. At the end, we will lose this because the Lord has prepared something better. But it's really a chain of losses, and we need to learn to accept the losses and to move on with these losses, I think.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. So I have a question. You mentioned that this was unexpected. Would you mind telling us how you lost your husband?
Yes, yes, it happened unexpectedly. Firstly, one day he simply said he was not feeling well. He went to the doctor. The doctor made some tests and said that he is near to experience a heart attack. So he need to be immediately taken into hospital, which was done. And there was an emergency OP, which was the whole night took this surgery. And actually, the surgery was successful, but perhaps. A day after the surgery, he got internal bleedings, and they put him in an artificial sleep, artificial coma. Then after 3 or 5 days, they woke up him from wake up coma, and I had the chance to see him once. I need to say this was happening 2020. This was the COVID time. So it was not allowed,
Yes.
visitors were not allowed, the chances to see him were. But I think in retrospect, I will continue just in a minute. In retrospect, I had 2.5 weeks to pass through this agony, because this was an agony. I saw him once, then again he got internal bleedings, again artificial, 2 times in artificial coma. And at
Mhm.
the end, they called me to ask to tell me that they need to. He was also put on machines. They told me they need to stop the machines, so I need to come to the hospital. And all this period took approximately 2.5 weeks, which were the most agonizing time for me, because I was in a constant prayer, constant crying to God. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do nothing, just praying. And I was asking all my friends, family, and people in the church to pray. A lot of people prayed for me and Thomas, actually, for my husband. I mean, in a lot of people in a lot of countries. And that's why when he got worse and worse, actually, he died from complications of the surgery. At the end, this was the diagnosis. Um, I couldn't believe it, because I don't know, it happened so unexpectedly, so without any warning signs, so dramatically, and despite all the prayers, despite all the hopes, because of course God could heal him, of course God could make this stop, and but he didn't, and this was really a heavy blow to take.
Yes, and let me tell you why I ask you that. So thank you so much for being transparent with us and explaining that. When I
Yes,
talk to a lot of women who have lost marriages and who are grieving their marriage, sometimes,
yes,
often, it's unexpected. They didn't know anything
yes.
was wrong. One day the husband just says, "I'm leaving you," or "I want a divorce." And in some
Mhm, mhm,
cases, they know
mhm.
they may have been having a little bit of trouble, but they didn't, she didn't realize it was that
Yes.
bad. And so in this case, I wonder sometimes if it's a little bit different if let's say for example, he was diagnosed with an illness and he lived for
Mhm,
6 months or 8 months and you
mhm,
had a little bit of time to
mhm,
come to terms. Same way perhaps with a couple who's going through some difficulties and maybe they decide to
mhm.
go through counseling, but in many cases it's just
Yes,
very very unexpected. And so yeah, I mean you're not expecting it is it's a shock to your system, I'm
yes,
sure. And even with a
yes,
successful surgery, even then, the outcome wasn't
yes,
obviously what you wanted. Yeah. So
yes.
thank you for sharing that with us.
Actually, I was thinking that then again in retrospect that perhaps this was really God's mercy, because the other option was that he died in my hands at home. I mean, because he was going to have a heart attack. But perhaps God gave me these 2.5 weeks, or maybe him too, and me, to somehow prepare me to allow the thought that he may die, perhaps. In the end, actually, I'm grateful for this agonizing 2.5 weeks that I had them and that I saw him at least once.
Hmm.
God, obviously, we don't understand his ways and his timing. Actually, I'm having a problem with his timing. This is what is offending my sense of justice, so to say.
Huh?
Yeah, but obviously, yeah, he knew very well what he was doing, and in his timing and his wisdom, he had decided that my husband would live so long, the years of his life, and he did it in such a way that at least to offer me, to give me some kind of preparation to accept this. Okay, I was not ready to accept it, but to allow this thought that it might happen this way.
Absolutely. Well, so okay, so you were still going through the wilderness as you said, but obviously the Lord has blessed you with some lessons. You've written a book, Draw
Yes,
Near. It's
yes.
a beautiful book. And so tell us a little bit about that process and why you decided to write the book.
Yes, yes. I think the first year, or the first 1.5 years after I lost my husband, I was really wrestling with God. I went through a certain period of, let's say, the disillusionment in faith, because really the pillars of my foundation, faith foundation, were really shaken. And I
Mhm.
think what needed to be shaken and gone was gone. And this heavy shaking at the end, I understand this very well, had the aim to strengthen the foundation, to seal the cracks in the foundation. This is how I see now in retrospect this process. But I was wrestling with God, and of course, I was very sad. I had depressive episodes and so. But what I needed actually was really to examine my beliefs, what I really believe about God, deep inside, about my future, about the eternity, and so on, and to examine my theology of suffering, let's call it this way. And that's why actually this book came for me, because this book is about suffering, it's about losses, but it's about the biblical perspective of suffering and losses. And my question was, okay, what good is in the pain, and how God can use our pain for what actually he can use our pain? Because for me, this suffering, losing my husband, seemed so pointless, so not needed. Why do I have to go through this agony, so to say? Why? What is the meaning in this? It's a meaning searching question, and all suffering people are asking this question, of course. And that's why the concept was born that in of the book that I went through 13, I call it painful experiences like depression, anxiety, betrayal, grief, disillusionment, and rejection and loneliness. And I share not only personal stories and biblical teaching, but I also, at the end of each chapter, I try to identify all the concrete losses in these painful experiences, and then make another column where I try to identify all the gains or benefits that we come from this experience when we draw near to God, when actually we submit to this suffering and press on with Him. What is coming for us, what is coming out of this? And I also have some reflection questions, some meditation verses, and guided prayers. But I think this writing the book and this whole exercise also helped me to see the silver lining and to see what actually God is trying to do. Yes, the loss is a loss, the pain is here, but it's definitely not in vain. It's definitely not meaningless. It has a purpose and a meaning, and we are simply on a journey to find out what this is.
Hmm. What was the hardest part of the book for you to write?
The hardest, I think perhaps the disillusionment was the hardest, because actually losing part of losing my illusions or beliefs about God, let's call it like this, I think is the most painful process, because Job really became my friend in this time. Job, I think the most painful loss ever is not a person, is not a relationship, it's not a marriage, it's not a dream. It's really the loss of intimacy and faith and trust in God if such loss occurs. This is the most painful and the most dangerous ever that can happen. And that's why I mentioned Job, because for Job, losing his faith was not an option. He said, "Faith is my most precious thing," and at a certain point, he wanted God to put an end to his life because he was so much struggling. He felt that he may lose his faith, and he said, "No, I better lose my life now before I lose my faith." And that, that's why I felt so related to him, because this is my dearest possession, my most precious possession. Because if I start doubting God, if I lose my trust in Him, I'm losing actually everything. There is no point
Mhm.
in life anymore, so to say. And this was the most difficult, the disillusionment in faith, to think about it, to write about it, and to come over on the other side with God together out of this struggle.
Wow, that is so interesting, and bringing up Job, which is it's a difficult character in the Bible for a lot of us to
Mm-hmm.
reconcile with.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I mean, if we're thinking about why me, but
Mm-hmm.
the way Job is looking at it is it's a little bit of why me, but he's more
Yeah.
concerned about losing his faith and not
Mm-hmm.
as much about the loss to himself. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting that you were able to pick that out and compare yourself to that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And this was really a guiding, burning example for me. And actually, this is what I want to share why Job, because on the first day, perhaps this was the first verse I ever read after the death of my husband. I now can't recite exactly which chapter and which verse in Job, but I will tell the verse, what the verse says. This was the first I ever read, and this was something like this. He says, "The darkness that came," I'm paraphrasing a little bit, "the darkness that now I experience, the darkness that came upon me, will not silence me. It will not silence me." And I felt when I read this, the thick darkness which is covering my face will not silence me. And I felt that God is telling me this, that yes, He brought darkness on me, darkness, I'm entering in the darkness, but for sure it will not silence my faith, it will not silence my testimony, and it will not silence me connecting to Him. So this was His promise at the very beginning, at the very first moments after the death of my husband. And I took this to heart, and these were words that really were my guiding lights through many dark days and nights.
How
This
did
what
you
happened to me will
happen
not silence me.
Yeah, how did you happen upon that verse? Was this just part of your regular Bible study, or did God guide you to this verse? Like, how did that
He
happen?
guided me. It was definitely not a part of my regular Bible study because in these first hours or days, I was not able to do my normal routine or normal Bible study. I can't recall how. Perhaps I just took the Bible and opened it. I can't remember these certain things. But when I read it, it simply, I had a visceral reaction. So I knew that these were personal words from God to me at this moment. Yeah.
Wow. I definitely understand the loneliness you felt because you didn't have any children. I also don't
Yes.
have children.
Yes.
And so when I divorced my husband, and some
Yes.
people know this, my husband actually died within 5 years of the divorce. So, in a way,
Mhm.
I felt almost like a widow, even though I was not, you know? But when
Yes.
you don't
Yes.
when you that extended family as far as
Yes.
children, it almost
Yes.
can make you question, "What am I
Mhm.
here for? Like, why did we even have the marriage?" Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
Did you feel that way?
Yes. Yes, sure. I ask such questions because this children topic was actually one of the biggest crises in our marriage. But this is completely other topic. But this was this because for 5 or 6 years we went through this all procedures, through this infertility struggle, and it was from one point the biggest crisis in our marriage, but from other point the deepest formation period that really
Mm.
brought an amazing change in us both and in our marriage. But but for sure, I asked this question. I asked God, okay, you didn't give me children. Okay, now you took my husband. Okay, so what was this for? For what? What am now I supposed to do completely alone? And of course, because to our fleshly minds, this is not making sense. Why God is giving something good, for example, and then withholding something which we think is good. We think is good. But of course, I'm now at this point of my life, I'm absolutely certain, and I know that my definition of good is definitely, in many cases, not God's definition of good or the best, and that He always has in mind good with eternal components, good from eternal perspective, and of course he's good in many cases with the stamp of spiritual benefits and blessings, and not so much of what we think and want here on this earth. Because naturally all people on this earth want these simple things, let's say it like this, to have certain possessions, a house, a car, to have families, to have children, to have a career. These are, so to say, people longings and wants. But of course, God wants for us things that are much more bigger, deeper, and far-reaching as what we imagine or think that is good and is best.
Yes, yes. Well, we certainly will have a link to how to find Draw Near.
Mm-hmm.
Afterward, if you could I'm sure I could find it as well, but I would love to actually
Yes.
get the exact quote from Job
Mm-hmm.
that God drew you to and that
I
has
will
been
find
such
it.
a help. Yes, yes, and we will post
Yes.
that in the show notes, exactly. So,
Yes.
if people want to know more, how can they find you, and are you on social media?
Yes, I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I also have a YouTube channel, Medium. So, in Facebook, you can find me with Hadassah Treu or On the Way BG, because this is my page site on the blog. On Instagram, I'm with my name, Hadassah Treu, and also on YouTube, I'm with the same name. On Twitter or X, okay, it's already X. I'm also there for the people who are still there. And yeah, these are the places I'm.
Thank you so much for today, for staying up late and sharing your story. As I said, I just think as women, there's just so much to be learned from each other. And
Yes.
definitely, I encourage the listeners to get the book, and I will provide all that information. Hadassah, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Yvette. I enjoyed it.